Namaste, Sudha Ragunathan here. Hello, my very dear friends. Hope all of you are doing well. Last week was a dancing delight. We learned so much about perfection and aesthete in art from the very erudite and profound guru Srimati Chitra Vishweshwaranaka. Expressions Espresso is truly enriched by such wonderful artists and personalities sharing their thoughts with all of us. Thank you, Chitraka, for giving us all that insight into your journey and your milestones. Having gone through all the comments on FB and YouTube, it just shows how much of a success your show was, Chitraka. Expressions Espresso Season 2 on episode 7 has another international celebrity and a supremely talented son of India on show today. His name spells magic on tabla, and he is an epitome of a blend of melody and modesty. His enthusiasm for his craft up to date, after 6 decades of being an achiever, is awe-inspiring. He has demonstrated the power of percussion across borders and believes in the importance of creativity in one's life. This is so evident in the innumerable albums that he has released, each one different from the other, and each one being a path breaker. What are the other things that make him happy? He enjoys a great game of cricket and loves tennis. He goes for long walks, loves reading, and mind you, real books, not e-books. With this unexpected and bumper of a free time that he has right now due to lockdown, he attempts cooking and enjoys it. And I guess experimental cooking is fully switched on. He helps his wife Tony in gardening and lends a hand in pruning trees and planting vegetables in their garden. It is really my honor to have had this traveling musician say yes, to have had this wonderful person who loves to be called a drummer accept my humble invitation to be here for all of us. Need I say more? A privilege to bring to you all Padma Bhushan awardee, Sangeet Natak Academy fellow, and Grammy Award winner, the one and only Zakir Hussain Bhai. Namaste, Bhai.
Namaste, how are you?
Extremely well. How else can I be with your presence?
Oh, you're too kind. I mean, I'm happy to see you so early in the morning. For me, it's like looking at a vision of Saraswati herself. So I pranam.
Pranam. This really reminds me of the AING meetings when we used to be both of ourselves. I must tell you, Zakir Bhai, there's been so much of excitement once we announced this show and that you were going to be on this episode. Everyone's like thumbs up and geared up to hear you.
You mean like this?
This way.
Okay.
And to the viewers, I have to tell you, Zakir Bhai has woken up so early in the morning just for all of you because he's now in the US on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So how early is that from your usual schedule?
Well, in India, if we were there in the season, concerts are on regularly. So you play a concert late in the night. Well, not these days. You are done by 10:30, but you still have to get up at 5 in the morning to go catch a flight to go somewhere else.
Yes.
So that used to happen. But so getting up this early in the morning, it reminds me of that music season kind of a get up thing. So in some ways, my body clock is kind of used to it. I set up my alarm for 6 a.m. and I think maybe 5 or 6 minutes before I was already up. Like,
Wow.
okay, what's going on? So so the inner clock is already still functioning with that practice in mind. But living in California, it's very interesting. I'm sure that if I have to say that where I live, it's a very country-like atmosphere. It's a village-like feel. The town hasn't changed at all. 180-year-old, 110-year-old, 106-year-old buildings are there,
Wow.
and yeah, and they don't allow new buildings and everything. So it's just a small little town, and it's only 15 minutes from San Francisco, so it's not that far away. But everybody knows everyone, so it's almost like living in a bubble, which is what they say we must create in this kind of a situation. The air is clean, a lot of hiking trails in the mountains. Sometimes we look out of the house window in the backyard, and there are deers walking around, or raccoons, and
Hmm.
so it's like living in Vrindavan gardens in those old days, and breathing fresh air, and blessing my star that I'm actually in this area, because the pollution in certain parts of India, especially Mumbai, is so strong that in order to be able to breathe, I mean, it's so difficult. So it's in this hamlet. It's a a blessing to be here, but doubly blessed because I get to now interact with all my colleagues and friends all across the planet, which I never used to do before, because we get on the plane and we'd go and we'd meet and play a concert or everything. But now we get to interact on a more in-depth basis. We get to talk for a long time. We get to find out about each other's likes and dislikes more so, and just do projects which are interesting on the web level, and so there's a lot to do, but it's fun at the same time.
In a way, it's brought us closer together.
It sure has. I mean, look, you're within touching distance, and you're like way over there.
We have indeed been fortunate to have our first guru in our parents. For me, it was my mother,
Mhm.
Chudamani Amma,
Uh-huh.
who held my fingers while I toddled into the world of music, I should say. I played with my toys and I sang Sarigama. You are so blessed, Zakir Bhai, to have the great legend Ustad Allah Rakhaji guide you in your first steps. How strong has this influence been on your music, and do you still feel that influence, that vibration?
Well, I mean, growing up in a music family where the wani of the tabla or the rhythms were a constant hum through the day,
Mhm.
uh, uh, is is uh, is something unique for a child. Uh, my father did not believe in a particular time of day being the time to practice and to transmit information to students and whatnot. It was any time of the day, late into the evening, or even late into the night. So it never stopped, 24/7. So that was always in there. My relationship with him was multi-layered. It developed uh, over, I would say, many decades. In a sense that I started as a son, uh, then I went one step up to being a student. Then I went another step up to being an apprentice,
Wow.
and then another step up to being an assistant, and then a colleague, and then a friend. So all these different layers of relationship we both went through, and in doing that, it was you know getting to know him in a way where I don't know if students get to know their teacher as well, because the designations are very clear. I'm a student and you're a teacher, so I'm going to learn from you. But this way of doing things, and growing up in that atmosphere, and being allowed to, at my own pace, discover who my maker is. I say my father, my guru, as my maker because, yes, God made me, brought me to this earth, but what I am today, I was molded into this thought wave, into this expression mode, into this visual that I am by him, but I should also give a nod, especially to my mom,
Yeah.
because I'm when you're growing up in a music family where after a certain time you realize that your teacher, your father, is gone a lot. He's away. Who's going to look after you? Who's going to guide you? Who's going to make sure that you have the tools you need to be able to survive in this world? And that was done by this illiterate young girl from a village in Punjab,
Mhm.
who came to Bombay, Mumbai, had no idea what a city life was all about, and somehow figured out that me and my sisters and my brothers had to be educated. They had to be sent to proper schools. They had to be given all the support that they needed to be able to be good interactors on this planet, in this world, no matter where they are in this world.
Right,
And
right.
so that kind of education is priceless. And then you combine it with what you receive from your teacher guru, and you kind of get the whole package that you need to have to be able to be a musician who travels all over the world, who works with musicians and artists all over the world, and interacts with incredible Vidushi Gana Saraswatis like you across the planet and across the oceans. So, yes, both my father and my mother have played a very crucial, very important role in my life. Uh, what I am visually, what I express myself as a musician, as an artist, is all my dad. But as a human being, how I appear,
Right.
and that inner person of me, myself, that comes out along with this art part of it, is all my mother. So yes, namaskars to both of them.
Which trait did you pick up from your mother, and which one did you pick up from your father? Of course, besides the musicality.
Well, what was interesting was they both, even though were very strict, very conservative in their thought process, they were very calm people.
Mhm.
I never saw my mother or my father raise their voice to anyone. Uh, I never got beaten up by either one of them. Uh, Only one time, and it was a double pain when I was playing cricket and I broke my finger, this finger,
Oh my.
because I was a wicket keeper, and I don't know, it happened, and my father was so livid that he slapped me that one time, and then he looked at me and he realized he had done something which was not required, and then he gave me a hug and he sat me down and he talked to me about what my life can be and is destined to be, and how important my hands are to be able to talk to the world through them, and it became clearer to me, I think, from that time on. I guess sometimes you need to have this or this done to you, and that happens. But both of them, in a calm manner, were able to give you information. I mean, I saw my mother at 1 o'clock in the morning receiving my, opening the door. My father comes in, and Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahib is with him, or Ustad Amir Khan Sahib is with him, or somebody's with him. Ram Narayan Ji, the Pandit Ram Narayan Ji, Sarangi, they are with him. Are थोड़ा सा खाना बना दे, हम लोगों को भूख लगी है, all that kind of stuff.
At 1 a.m.
At 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And not a wrinkle on her forehead, nothing, just a smile. Aiye bhaiya ji, sit, baitho. And we are moved about on the bed, and the room is made. And they sit down, and she immediately starts making food and everything. And it was just such a calm demeanor that that it was like a continuation of what he was, and how it had to sort of extend into what the family life was all about. So when you looked at that happening, it was clearer to me how I should behave around the musicians, how I should react to them being there. Just watching those two interact in that manner, there was a lesson to be learned as to what my function is as a student, and as a apprentice, and as an assistant to my teacher guru. It was very special.
You said it so beautifully. Talk to the world. You speak to the world with your tabla. I know when I watch you, I feel it's a dialogue between you and us. And the tabla is just your medium of communication, which it is, of course.
Well, we speak. I mean, you speak. I mean, you sing a rag or whatever it is, whether it's Kamboji or Kalyani or whatever, and you sing a Pallavi or a Kriti or a Kirtan or whatever. Those words are there, and you are speaking those words. But what makes it special is that when you project that information, that it visually becomes alive for people. So in a way, you're telling a story. And on a multi level, it's almost an audio visual experience. People can look above your head and actually see the scene being enacted as you are speaking it, and so it's that gift that you have is a very special gift. And I, for instance, need to have a sitar player or a sarod player or a sarangi player or a vocalist with me to be able to collectively conjure up that information to be visualized in the minds and eyes of the audience. I would say you have that one step further, where you can actually, in your projection, do all that by yourself. And so in that way, I envy you. And this storytelling, whether it is through singing or through instrumental music, is a gift that comes to some and are blessed, and they are able to share it with people. And for that, we are, or you are, in a very special place.
Thank you. You make me feel like a danseuse. You said when we weave a story through our music, you're actually bringing images with the words.
Exactly.
You are a very inclusive musician, Zakir Bhai, when it comes to religion, I feel. You embrace all religions and see God as one. And offer your music in absolute bhakti, be it at a temple, mosque, or a church. How did you really imbibe this kind of a religious inclusivity and tolerance that I think has made your music seamlessly integrate itself across gods and religions, especially with Hindu gods? We have so many.
Well,
you call it a way of life.
It is a way of life. I do not label whatever everybody believes in as religion. It is a way of life, how you live. I mean, I was blessed. I think my father was blessed in a way, because I mean, when you're brought up in, say, a Muslim Ustad family, there is a certain peripheral interaction socially. you interact with your cousins, your brothers, your uncles, your mamu, whoever it is. You don't go out of that circle. And when you, the only time you got it when you go to see a concert, and that's it. And so you are sort of being bombarded with that kind of thinking, and that kind of thinking for me is with blinkers on. It just shows you this one way of existing. My father was lucky because from his very young age, he arrived in Mumbai, and then he started working in Indian films. And he was working in Mohan Studio as the music director, as the house music director, and did 30 odd films. And so he was making films like Mata Anasuya or Khandan or various films where he was not caught up in that Khan Saab Ustad world. So that was our upbringing in that manner as well. We were meeting Raj Kapoor ji or Ashok Kumar ji or various other, De Costa and De Mello violin players and clarinet players and so on, who were of all these different living styles, who converged in the house. So that was my upbringing. So it wasn't any different. And when you spoke to someone like, say, Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan, whose house I used to go to when I was 11, 12 years old, my duty was every Sunday go to his home with my tabla, and I sit there. And
how old? How old?
11 years old, 12 years old. His Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab's wife adopted my mother as her daughter. So there was this relationship. So I would go and I would sit there. He would be lying on this lounging thing with the swar mandal in his lap. And he'd be doing his singing, alap and all that. And people would come and he'd, in the middle of their, oh, please come sit, how are you? Chai lao and all that stuff would happen. And then he'd be singing and we'd be sitting, we'll all be sitting there. And when the mood was on him to sing some bhajan or some tumri or some whatever, my job was to provide theka.
Yeah.
So I did that. And I didn't realize at that point that I was being groomed. I was being taught. I was learning what was going on. And so someone like Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab was once interviewed, and I was sitting there by, I think, All India Radio program. And he was asked a question. He had just done a bhajan, which had become quite popular, Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay. And so somebody said, Khan Sahab, you are a Muslim. You do 5 times prayers and all that and everything, and you believe it, and yet you're singing Hari Om Tat Sat. So I mean, what is this? I mean, why are you doing this? And so he said, actually, I'm kind of paraphrasing in English. He said that, look, for me, this is the name of God. This is the name of Allah, he said. Hari Om is the name of Allah. I'm going to sing it with the same bhakti as I would sing the name of Allah. There is a morning raga composition, Mero Allah Meherban. I will sing it in the same way as I would sing Hari Om Tat Sat. And to me, they are both the same. To me, my approach to be able to express my love, devotion, and reverence to this particular set of words and bring them to life would be exactly the same as I would be singing a naat. You know what a naat is? A naat is like a Sufi couplet,
right. Okay.
Sung in a more semi-classical manner. And so that's what he said, and that was my upbringing. That exactly was the way I was brought up. And going to study with my father at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning as a 7-8 year old. And he would start me with a Ganesh Vandana. And then he would teach me Saraswati Vandana. how it is, Ya Kunde, Indu Shashar Havala, all that stuff. And then start to talk about the matter, tabla matter, and the syllables and the patterns and everything. And it wasn't, okay, learn this pattern. It was more like, okay, here's this pattern. Now convert this into a rhythm cycle of 7 or rhythm cycle of 9 or 11 or 16. That's what he would do. And then when I would do that, then he would say, this comes from this maestro who was like that, and then a story about that maestro and where he came from, and so on and so forth. And so that's what I did. And then go to the madrasa, Islamic school, and sit and open the Quran Sharif and recite the Quran, and then close that an hour later and walk across the street to St. Michael's High School Church and sing the hymns, and then be marched to my classroom to study history, geography, English, whatever. So it all happened in a few hours, but all seamlessly connected. So it did not feel like one was different from the other. And what the important thing was, neither the mullah nor my father, neither Father Bento in the church, none of those people impressed upon me that what they were saying was the correct thing. They never forced it. So I grew up in this, okay, this is all one, this is all the same. And I said Ameen for the Quran. I said Amen for the hymn. And I said Om Shanti for the Vandanas and Stutis. And they all were expressing the same thing. And I have to say, whether it's the Bible or the Torah or the Quran Sharif or the Gita or Ramayana, none of those have said anything different. They've all said the same thing. Love thy neighbor, be kind, be respectful. That's it. That's basically it. So, I mean, if you take aside all the garbs that people wear and, all the ornaments that people believe in and the shringaras and all that, the core is the same. So, and that's where I grew up. It was in that core knowledge. And so to try to be any different was not even necessary. It wasn't expected.
Profound message. I mean, it's told us all just what you are and just how you look at everything as one. And I think it's how all of us should start looking at religion or anything for that matter.
Yeah.
Be able to embrace, include, be inclusive. That's very important. Now I'm going to bring South India, Zakir Bhai, to the conservative South India. Where
No. It's not conservative.
It's not?
No.
Good. Your playing simply forged ahead, I thought, with your collaborations with the great Veena Balachandra ji, Vikku ji, Mali ji, all those lovely, prestigious venues down south, and you became a household name here.
Oh my God. Thank you.
So what was your experience about working with the maestros from the south?
Well, first of all, it took me forever to try and figure out how the rhythmic development works in the Carnatic system. It's not easy for a North Indian, and especially in 1966, 67, it was still an unknown commodity in North India. Yes, we heard some of that in films. And I saw that in recording studios when I went with my father to his recording studios recording. There was once a song that was sung by Lata Mangeshkar ji and composed by a composer called Chitragupt. Very, very nice composer, underrated, beautiful composer. And it was for a film called Shiv Bhakt. What was interesting was that it was a Tillana. And it wasn't played by a Mridangam player. It was played by my father.
Wow.
So he was the tabla player. I mean, there's a recording of it available. And the lady who dances in the film is the great South Indian star, Padmini ji.
Okay.
So it was interesting to hear Lataji sing the Tillana, and it was correctly based. Dim ta dim ta dim ta dim ta dim dere na der dim ta ta na dere na dim ta dim ta dim. That was the Tillana. So, and
Okay.
it was exactly there. It wasn't like a tarana of North Indian classical music. No, it was the phrasing and the pattern were exactly like a Tillana. And to hear that, and at that point was like, wow, what is this? It is different. And my father played like a mridangam player.
Hmm.
It was interesting to hear that. And the pallavi and the anu pallavi and charnam and all that happening in the order that it was supposed to. And it was just amazing to hear it with the North Indian musicians and performing it. It kind of piqued my interest. It got me thinking, and I think it was a few years after that that my father and I got to hang out with Palghar Raghuji
Hmm.
uh, in Shanmukanand Hall in Mumbai, 1965 or 66. And at that point, it was very interesting because in the sound check or rehearsal, Ravi Shankarji had my father and Raghuji playing with him, one piece.
Both of them. Both of
Yeah,
them. Okay.
both of them. And then I don't know what transpired, but between themselves, my father and Raviji and Raghuji decided that that one piece will be performed not by my father, because my father will play the long concert with Raviji, but I will play with Raviji and Raghuji. So at the age of 15, I sat down, or 16, whatever it was, to play Palgar Raghuji on the right, then Raviji in the center, me on the left, and no tal keeper, nothing. And but it was very interesting to have that experience. It was kind of an extension of what I heard in the studio with my father, with Lataji, and it piqued my interest. I started to want to learn. So in the dressing room, I sat with Raghuji, and I was there, and he said, "Come sit." So I was on the floor in the Shanmukanand Hall, and I asked him, "Sir, what is how?" So he said, just basically gave me that information. My first chorway. So, so he said, do this. And I did that. And he said, and he didn't tell me whether it was the increase or decrease or whatever, none of that stuff. But he just said, learn that. And he said, I'm going to play this. And that would mean that I'm stopping and now you continue. So that was the first lesson I got from
That
him.
was the challenge that was thrown at you first.
Yeah, first.
Yeah.
And so and my learning began. My curiosity was flamed further, and then running into Vikuji was godsend, and learning from him at 5:30 in the morning. Him playing M.S. Subbulakshmiji's cassette loud
Yes.
and clear. We were living together.
Right.
And so that was another experience. And then I was taken to Rishi Valley, where
Yes.
MLB was there, and,
Yes.
and Palgar Mani Ayerji was there. And I spent a month there learning from Mani Ayerji. So it was the whole Tala system and everything. I'm saying I'm still kind of grappling with it. I'm still groping my way around it, because the kind of mathematical innovations that have happened now in the Carnatic system, it has grown by leaps and bounds from where it was in the early 70s or whatever. And so to keep up with this is really frantic. It's amazing what people are coming up with. I mean, I played with Karaikudi Maniji, and his approach to how it should be is so at a different level now than it was. And this is natural. I mean, what happens in Indian music as well, North Indian music, is that the tabla players have taken the information to a whole different level. I see young tabla players today, and I like my eyes, get big and my jaw drops, because I mean the way they play, and then the combinations, and the tempo and the speed and the strength that they've developed. I mean, it's like, wow, this is amazing, and I feel like a cripple compared
No,
to. Oh yeah, yeah, it's true.
humble. You're being very humble.
No, no, it's true, because it is natural that the music will grow, it will move forward, and it will move forward not in a horizontal manner, but
Yes.
also vertical manner. So when it does that, I mean, you start to see a world that you have walked in up to a certain point, and there is a corner to turn, and somebody's going to turn that corner. And I believe my father did that for tabla in his time. Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Amir Khan Sahab did for the music in their time. Someone like Kumar Gandharva ji, or Kishori Amonkar ji, or Bhimsen ji pointed into a whole different direction, and so it goes on. I mean, nobody imagined Marwa to be sung the way Ustad Amir Khan Sahab did. I mean, the whole new musicality of the raga was put forth, and to look at it in that manner, that was a newfound knowledge with the way Kishori ji sang group. It's like, is it possible to make these combinations and have them stand the test of time? It's just and same thing with my father, the patterns, the tihais, in the North Indian korwais, and how he developed that, and then now to see his students take it to a different level, and then the tabla players take that where we brought it to another level. It's just amazing to watch. And South India is another aspect of my inner self that has information from having played with Lal Gudi ji,
Yes.
Mali sir, Balachandra ji, and of course, Viku ji, and Palghat Maniayar ji, Palghat Raghu ji, and then Guru Vayur ji, and Shiv Raman ji, and Ramabhadran ji. I mean, all that has been such a learning experience. It's just amazing I mean, when I heard Shiv Raman ji, and he pointed out to me the resonance of the mirdangam that he had been experimenting with, and to learn that from him, it was how he utilized that technique of tabla onto the mirdangam, and then to see the way Ramabhadranji accompanied the music, to watch Shivramanji, Palghat Maniji, and their style of playing, and then to see Ramabhadranji in a whole different musicality in the mirdangam accompaniment. This is information that was priceless, and it helped me to be able to bring that information into my tabla playing. And what I have to say, is a concoction of all these personalities that sort of have become imprinted on my heart, in my mind, and through that,
Your being.
my being, and now it comes into my instrument, and what I am, I think, is a Rogan Josh, as they say in North India, and a figment of the imagination of all these musicians. That's who I am, I feel.
You mentioned all these legends, but we also see you sharing stage with youngsters like Rahul Sharma ji, Rakesh Chaurasia, Ganesh Kumaresh, Kala Ramnath, Jayanti Kumaresh. So how do you find that transition? I wouldn't call it transition. I mean, from yesteryear playing to today's playing with all these young artists.
That is the selfish me. It is. Because, like I said, the younger people are taking it vertically and horizontally forward. These musicians that you mentioned, including, and I would add Niladri Kumar and Purbayan Chatterjee and Sabir Khan Sarangi and Dilshad Khan and so on. These musicians not only grew up practicing sargam, paltas, and raga development, on a parallel level, they also learned about music from all over the world.
Absolutely. Right.
So as they were learning Mohanam, excuse me, they were also learning um, its its a mirror image in the Western world or in the African world, and so
Yes.
on. Pentatonic is a normal thing everywhere in the world. They were learning that at the same time. Someone like me, I had to spend 18, 19 years doing Indian classical music and just learning that. And then suddenly I was thrown into the scheme of things with Western music, jazz, rock, pop, whatever. And then I had to spend another 8, 9, 10 years learning that. So the time spent was a long time. These guys and ladies grow up learning both at the same time. And so when they do, at a young age, they are frighteningly well informed. And so they also have a whole different uh, approach to musicality of ragas. Whether it's Aberi or Mohanam or Hindolam or whatever it is, the way they combine musicalities, and yourself included, there is an extended vision of what these combination of notes can be, or this combination of rhythmic phrasing can be. That is sort of new to us oldies. I have to call as myself oldie. Like you already designated me as oldie by saying 6 decades.
But that's
So,
good.
no, so I'm
That doesn't designate.
no, but I mean, I may be a bridge between what was old and what is new, but I am still tied to what was old, and I'm hoping to receive what is new into my system of understanding. So that selfish reason brings me to these incredible geniuses, young geniuses, who have grown up with feet in both parts of the world, musically speaking. And so their approach to music is so different, to rhythm is so different than mine can ever be. And so when I play with them, this new information comes in, and it kind of brings me up to date. So it helps me, they help me to reinvent myself so that I can fit into what today is all about, musically speaking. And that's one of the reasons I perform with them. The other reason is their talent and their genius should be exposed to the world. So if I have the ability to be able to put them on a stage where they
Right.
could be seen and heard by a lot more people all over the world, then so be it. I must give them that opportunity, and that happens. And third, when I take them on tour with me, I have them all to myself.
So you can learn more from them.
Yeah, on a tour bus, I can talk to them and learn from them, and find information. I'm telling you, when I play with Jayanti ji and Kumresh ji on tour, and we are traveling in a bus together, we have a tour bus. In the daytime, the discussions about ragas and talas and compositions is different. And same thing with Ganeshi and Kumreshi when they were traveling. I learned so much about South Indian Carnatic music and their approach to it vis-a-vis what the Western approach is to music. It's an interesting knowledge, and to see Niladri do something incredible with Tilak Kamod raga. I mean, the bhav element of the raga that was so popularized in the 50s and the 60s by the singers of Agra Gharana, and then later taken by Kirana Gharana as well. I think there is a more modern approach to that element, the emotive quality of the music, that is just so special to watch and to be a part of, because the way they play, it allows me to find a way to how I must accompany them. And it's way different than how I accompanied Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab or Ali Akbar Khan Sahab or Ravi Shankar ji and so on. It's way different. And so I get to learn, I get to keep reinventing myself and keep moving forward into the world as it is today.
I think you also bring in that old world, that age charm you know, into this new music or whatever you want to call it, into the
You mean,
youngster.
अरे मियाँ हमारा भी जमाना था जब हम बैठते थे गाने के लिए तो मियाँ तानपुरे मिलाने की भी जरूरत नहीं होती थी
Okay.
समझे that you mean that old
Not that old. This is Vilayat Kanji, right? So
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, from that period to this
yeah.
period, there
Yes,
is
yes,
a bridge, and I
absolutely.
think you are the perfect bridge. So when you bring that charm to this newness, I think the blend and the sound and the production is out of the world, truly.
I have to say that it had advantages to both of us, me and the younger musicians, that we get to learn from each other. I have stories to tell them about the maestros from before, and inspire them in some ways to be able to emote those qualities that those great masters had, so I'm more like a peephole for them into that world. But for me, they are more like a visual window into where the music is going today. And for me, I think it's really a heartening thing to see where the music is going today, and it's and how it's developing and going forward. And I'm happy to see it live the way it is living at this point.
With your permission, Zakir Bhai, I'm just going to acknowledge who's watching us now.
Oh wow!
Sukanya Shankarji.
Pranam to her.
Namaste. Savitri Rao, Ravi Seshadri, violinist Krishna Swami, Salem Ranganathan,
Wow.
Rangam Sai Giridhar,
Uh-huh.
Rajan from Houston, Santosh Anantpura, Shobha Subramaniam from Sydney,
Wow.
Amrita Murali, Anand Subramaniam, and there's my team tells me that there has been a lot of appreciation for your response about the inclusivity of religion
Oh
and
boy.
music.
Yeah, but I mean, like for instance, you said Sukanya ji, and it brings me to Ravi ji. You know, one of the most important influence in my life, or in many musicians' life in India, North India. I mean, you talk about bridge, and so when you talk about Ustad Alauddin Khan Sahab, Ustad Hafiz Ali Khan Sahab, those great maestros of Imdad Khan Sahab, Inayat Khan Sahab, the great maestros, and in that time in late 40s, music had to find a way to exist. The princely states had gone,
Right.
and so the court musicianship was gone, and the musicians had to find a new way to survive, and so the music was brought onto the stage as an entertainment art form. But those great maestros of the old times had no clue as to how to bring the music to the common people, to to the audiences, and it needed somebody to be able to harness all that information and be able to find a way to be able to showcase it to the world. And so I would say that the person who we looked up to who managed to first make that possible was Ravi Shankarji, who found a way to bring this music. And again, I have to say, it wasn't just learning the music. It was also learning the way of the world by going to school, by getting educated, and being able to put into words in different languages what our art form and our tradition was all about. And all that was important. So we all emoted that, to be able to, to watch Ravi ji and see how he interacted on stage, how he talked to the audience, how he projected the music, how he spoke to the people. I mean, I remember touring with him, and we check in at the airport, and then we sit down in a chair or wherever it is to wait for the flight. He'd disappear. And about 15, 20 minutes later, he'd come back and he'd have 5, 6, 7 magazines, newspapers in his hand. He was a reader. He read. and whether it was a Newsweek or Times of India or Filmfare or Star and Style, whatever, all those magazines would be in his hands, and he would read them diligently, and he would get all this information, and it was obvious that he was trying to put all this information into his mind so he could somehow make the music have those words that he has read fit and project and to the people so that he could bring it to them in the words that they would understand. It was such an important lesson to learn. And one of the things I have to tell you is that when I first played with him, there was a series of 4 concerts, I think. Mumbai, Hyderabad, Chennai, Bangalore, and Cochin, 5 concerts. After the first concert, we got on the plane to go to the next city. Not a word spoken.
Mm-hmm.
We played the next concert. Now the third concert was we got on the plane. Not a word spoken. In those days, there was a plane like Dakota, which was like this, and you sat in a DC-3, and Indian Airlines, and so no word spoken. And me as a young musician, very like bubbling over. I want to know what he thought about me playing with him.
You were anxious too.
Very anxious, very anxious. So finally, I couldn't take it any much, and I said, "Uncle, what did you think? I mean, the concert was good, huh? I was okay. I mean, that kind of thing." Yes, it was all right. And then he's back to his magazines and newspaper. And then I don't know what happened. He realized that I was very anxious and I needed to know. So he puts a magazine down and he says, "Zakir, do you remember any phrase, any palta or anything that I played last night in the concert?" And I looked at him and I realized that I didn't. I could not remember anything. But I could remember everything that I had played. I knew exactly what I did. I was so caught up in what I needed to do, what I wanted to do, and how I wanted to project it, and what I should do that will make the audience clap. That was so important to me that I had not paid any attention to what he was playing. At that time when it happened, boom, 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 yeah, it's done. And he said, "Do you remember me looking at you?"
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't. I wasn't paying attention to him. I wasn't watching him. I was watching that person sitting in the audience who was nodding at my playing. I was connecting with that person and just establishing that, as opposed to doing the job that I'm supposed to do, is connect with the musician that I'm playing with. So he said, "Wouldn't it be nice if you would look at me and connect with me? Because after all, we are having a conversation together."
Yes.
That's all he said. It was a lesson that was priceless. So when we got to the concert in the next city, he suggested that I sit at an angle so I could watch him. Later on in his life, it changed a little bit when he was in Europe and America and everything. I think it was his management team that told him, "Oh, you being a lead, you should sit a little bit further up on the riser, and your tabla player should be a little bit behind you on your right, and the tanpura player a little bit behind you on the left." So that changed a little bit, and he had to turn around to look at my father, who was playing with him. But in those days, when we were in India, it was different. The tabla player sat like a mirdangam player would sit,
Right.
on the right, but on the same line. But what he asked me to do was sit at an angle, like as if I'm a mirdangam player. So I did, and that just changed the whole way of playing music for me. Because now I could watch him, I could see him, and therefore I could actually hear him.
And you would interact emotionally.
And I could visualize what he was doing. And not only that, when I heard the phrase and it came to me, I could anticipate what the next phrase might be. And therefore, what my plan of action should be. and it just changed everything. And that is a priceless lesson that you learn. And so someone like him, and then playing with Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, was a priceless experience, because I spent 8, 9, 10 years playing with him and touring with him, and these two musicians and their input in my tabla playing as an accompanist is unparalleled. And then there were two other musicians, while I'm on it, should say, who helped me to refine all that information that I had gained from playing with Raviji and Ali Akbar Khan Sahab. And those two musicians were Pandit Shiv Kumar ji and Pandit Hari Prasad ji. Yes. I traveled a lot with them. I toured a lot with them. And, you have all this information and you want to be able to find out where to take it next. You need musicians who would allow you to do that. You cannot do it in your living room practicing. You have to get on stage, and you have to find musicians who are willing to tolerate you using them as a blackboard. Shivji and Hariji allowed me to do that, and hone my skill as a tabla player, and bring all that information from way back then to the world that we lived in at that time, the present time of Shivji and young Shivji, young Hariji, and a very young me playing together. And so these four musicians in the Indian classical music world have been a very special influence in my life.
I can visually see you playing as in you described, and it's such a beautiful.
Yeah, image. I'm sorry to ramble on, but I mean, it just came. It just happened.
You are an explorer who has showcased to the world the remarkable potential of Indian music. There are some historical and groundbreaking collaborations that you have been a part of with, if I may say a few, with Mickey Hart, Charles Lloyd, Eric Holland, Dave Holland, most recently with Herbie Hancock. Yes. So how easy or challenging was it for them to entwine to your music, the music that you sang through your tabla?
Oh my God, thank you very much for the sang part. One thing I have to say is, whether it's you, me, anybody, musician, we are all students. From the day we arrive in this world to the day we leave this world, we'll be learning something new, something different, and we strive forward to try to find that information that will make us grow and look at things in a more panoramic manner. Now, someone like Charles Lloyd or Herbie Hancock, or these guys are mid-70s, almost 80 years old now. And someone like Bela Fleck or John McLaughlin or anybody, Eric Holland and all that, these guys are also senior to me. But the reason I met them was because they wanted to learn more. They wanted to get more information. They wanted to find out how else can they express themselves, which other language can they talk their music in. It was very interesting and to watch that, because when I met Charles Lloyd, for instance, the first thing he said was, "Can you teach me a bhajan?"
How sweet.
He's a saxophone player of enormous genius. And the first thing he tells me is, "Can you teach me a bhajan?" So that is a lesson in itself. You know that we will never play good enough to be able to quit.
Yes.
If you think you've played good enough, the best you can ever,
I agree with you.
hang up your boots. There's no such thing. There's no perfection. So playing with these musicians was that kind of a learning, where you realize that these geniuses have sought you out not because they just want to play with a tabla player, but they also want to learn something about what my world is. And to see this come at you in that manner, I met John McLaughlin, the great jazz guitarist, with whom we formed Shakti finally, the group, because he came to my workshop to learn about tabla and about Indian ragas. He was
Wow.
already a multi-million record seller artist at that point. Why did George Harrison, who sold zillions of records at Beatles, come to Raviji? Because he wanted to learn more. He wanted to find a way to be able to speak his music to the rest of the world in as many languages as possible. So he came to Raviji. John Coltrane did the same thing. So this is all it's all about, is learning. So when I met them, I realized one thing, that I should not consider myself a tabla player. I should consider myself a percussionist.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to impose on them, oh, you have to only play music in teen tal or in rupak tal or in jap tal, and you have to play T highs and you have to know. I just arrived there and I'm with my instrument, and we spoke, and then we started to look into melodies. And if that required me playing tabla like as if I was playing bongo drums or playing conga drums or even drums,
Mhm.
I would do that. And I would touch my ears and ask forgiveness from the masters of the old. Please don't mind me playing tabla like this, but I must communicate and connect with these musicians, uh, and do whatever is necessary to make our interaction positive.
It was a
So
new avatar you were taking, right? I mean, you were the
I'm,
same, but the role that you played was.
the core is always the same, of course. The core is always the same, but the mindset, if you the first thing that many Indian musicians, instrumentalists, vocalists do is when they get together with a Western artist and that Western artist sings a pattern or a phrase, they say, Rag Basant Mukhari. The immediate thing is Rag Basant Mukhari or Rag Mohanam or Rag Bhopali or whatever. Now you've tied yourself into that. So as a musician, now you will start thinking about it, Rag Basant Mukhari. So you will not venture out of that phraseology in that interaction, psychologically speaking. So when that happens, you're limiting yourself.
Okay.
And so when the Western musician who has sung that phrase that brought the memory of Basant Mukhari inside of you decides to go into a harmonic element of it that breaks out of the raga, you are flustered. And you suddenly say, no, don't do that, because it is out of the raga. That is your mental block. That is your mindset that's putting up walls. That's not what you do when you play with musicians who are not of Indian origin. You must open up, and you must, realize that an all-inclusive approach is necessary here, and that to impose on them your sensibility as a musician of Indian classical music is not necessary. But you coming as a musician with an open idea, okay, if Basant Mukhari will lead to Todi and will lead to Deshkar and so on, that's fine. That's okay. It's all right. I mean, we do play Ragmalikas.
Yes.
So why can't we teach ourselves to be able to be open? Why do we have to play Ragmalika, this raga and that raga and that raga and that raga? Why not play all the ragas as one? I mean, so that kind of mindset or thought process is something that I learned from these people. And once you accomplish that and you establish that, your interaction becomes easier. Your attempt to play with them has no boundaries, no fences to cross, and that makes it fun and relaxed, enjoyable, and that's what I've discovered over the years working with all these musicians.
I think you really taught me a lesson, Zakir Bhai.
Oh my God.
I've always thought that way. When I hear an African singing a melody,
Uh-huh.
I always thought, oh, this is Madhyamavati. This
Uh-huh.
is Danyasi.
Uh-huh.
But now, since you said this, the
Uh-huh.
next time I sit with them, I'm going to think differently. Thank you for this
Uh,
lesson.
it's my pleasure to be of service.
Ranga, I don't know if you remember Ranga, but he says you have a lot of fans in Italy.
Oh,
Shankar,
buongiorno, signor. Come stai? Oh no, it's nighttime. Buonanotte.
it's nighttime, it's evening for them, right?
Yeah, evening.
Shankar asks for any of your experiences with mandolin string bass.
Oh my God, what an amazing musician. Gone too soon, I have to say. What a loss to our world. Sriniji is a very special musician. But in order for you to be able to experience the depth of music of any musician, you have to know that musician as a friend, your relationship and interaction with a musician prospers and grows and develops by leaps and bounds when you get to know each other socially. So there is a multi-layered relationship that you must establish. When I got to play with John McLaughlin, I know him not only as a musician that I meet and play with, but somebody I can play ping pong with, somebody I can go to the movies with, somebody I can hang out with and have Italian food with. I know his son, I know his wife, they know my daughters and my wife, and the interaction in the family, or Bela Fleck and Edgar Meyer, when I get to play with them, I could get a call from them or saying, oh, by the way, your daughter's getting married and you're looking for a gown for her, you should get in touch with so and so and so and so and so, and this kind of stuff. I mean, you have a relationship where you know their likes and dislikes at all levels. And when you do that, your conversation as a musical interaction includes all that in-depth understanding of each other. And so that is what I feel I got to with Srinivasji. When we were on tour, he was such a beautiful human being, and his voice level never went from mandra satak.
I remember that. Yeah.
It never, but his playing soared into the skies, into the heavens. I don't know about ragas and raganis and the correctness and all that stuff and all that. Nothing. I don't know. I understand that he may have faced a little bit of a pushback because of the instrument he played and brought that into Carnatic system. That can happen.
Adapted it so beautifully.
Yeah, and he adapted beautifully, and finally the audiences and the musicians adapted to his presence in that world through that instrument beautifully. So all that happened, and it was fabulous. But to play with him was a whole different experience, and how he's the one who brought to my attention the interesting element called the Chittaswaram.
Chittaswaram, yes.
I never understood that in the Kriti. So I had no clue that there was this. And so he brought that to my attention and started playing with me and gee, will you please join me in playing with this part? What is this part? Is this a fixed part? Yes. Gee, it is, yes, kind of a fixed part. Oh, really? I didn't know that. And then he would play, and then I would learn it, and then he would say, but gee, please play it your style, no? Any way you like, play, but this is Chittaswaram, and it's part of, and so that's one blessing that I received from him, learning that part. I knew Pallavi, Anupallavi, Charanam, and all that stuff, but I never paid attention to Chittaswaram, and nobody brought it to my attention. So there it was, and that's one lesson learned from Srinivasi. But the other lesson is humility. The other is being humble. I don't know. I asked him one day, and this was, I guess, in jest that I asked him. I said, "Gee, do you stand in front of the mirror every morning and look at yourself and say, 'I'm humble' 500 times or something?" Gee, you are being funny with me. But I mean, never have I heard him speak a word of negative, a negative word about anybody. And whenever somebody said to him, "Do this," yes, yes, Ji, I will, yes, Ji. And the first time I saw him was in Berlin.
Mhm.
He was, I think, 11 years old, and he had come to play at the Berlin Jazz Festival, and
Yeah.
Vikuji was with him. And Vikuji brought him to my room, and he said, "You should listen to him." And then they played for me, and it was, I mean, my again, the jaw dropped watching a young musician play with such ease, and all the swaras, the meads, the gamakas, and everything coming through his instrument. I was just like flabbergasted. How is this possible? And of course, the audience that evening was stunned listening to him play. And it was just, and John McLaughlin said to me, "Did you hear that? This is," it was just amazing. Yeah. So I mean, Srinivas was an eye opener for us when it comes to Carnatic music and its advent into the world of modern world. And Srinivas was the flag bearer of that. Pranams to him.
Before I forget, Zakir Bhai, you have to make a video of yourself imitating everyone that you have met.
No,
That's,
no,
that's I'm deputing you that little chore.
no.
Because
Okay.
it's so real. I mean, you bring the person alive.
Well, I've spent so many years with him, and as I say, get to know somebody on multi-layer. You sort of imbibe that personality. They say when you're married to somebody and you're married 25, 30 years, you start to look like each other.
Really?
They say that. I mean, your mannerisms and everything, you just start to be that way. I mean, I find that a little difficult to understand, but I do understand that if I'm spending 8-10 years traveling with somebody, that I would imbibe certain mannerisms of that person. Naturally it will happen.
So we have somebody watching, Mahesh Vinayak Ram.
Oh my God. Yes.
RK Usha, Satish Vyas.
Pranam Satish ji.
Oh, yes. So Usha, RK wants to know about your experience with, everyone wants to know about your experience with Pandit Briju Maharaj.
Biju Maharaj ji.
Yeah.
Wow.
My God. I didn't know that. You've had experience
Playing with him.
Yeah,
Biju
playing.
Maharaj ji. Oh my God. For such a long time, many years, I played with him. The first time I played with him was an accident. He arrived in Mumbai to play a concert, and Pandit Shamta Prasad ji was to play with him, the great tabla maestro of Banaras. He couldn't make it. Flight cancelled or something. Indian Airlines had a very spontaneous way of operating in those days. They would have a flight to go from Indore to Bhopal, and so they would say, "Oh, we are not going to stop in Bhopal. We are going directly to Delhi," or something. So that would happen. So anyway, so he didn't arrive, and so Birju Maharaj ji called Sitara Devi ji and said, "Are I have to perform, and Shamta Prasad ji have not arrived. Who do I play with?" So she said, "Don't worry, I'll bring somebody with me to the concert." It was at a place called Birla Hall in Mumbai. So she got me and said, "Chalo, tabla lo, you're going to play with Birju Maharaj." And I was like, "Oh my God, what's going to happen?" So I arrived, and Maharaji took her aside and said, "He's a very young boy. I mean," she said, "Don't worry, he'll be fine. Don't worry about it, and play with him." So that was the first time I played with him. I have to thank my lucky stars for Tazaraji, because twice she did this for me. There was a festival called what was it? Surda Sangeet Sammelan, that this one organizer called Brij Narayan used to do. He did that and another Sammelan called Kalke Kalakar Sammelan. So he had Sitara Devi performing, and she brought me with him, and with her, and he said, "अरे ये लड़का तुम्हारे साथ बजाएगा? अरे ये लड़के को सुन तो लो पहले." She said, "He's going to be fine." So that was one time, and then this was another time, and so I got a chance to play with Maharaji, and that started quite a relationship. We must have played a few hundred concerts together over the years, and I've learned so much from him also about how to emote bhava in the tabla, because he was also a tabla player, and so he brought to my knowledge, do it this way, when I do Krishna this way, or when I do Radha this way, try this. So learning that was a very interesting experience. But I have to tell you, he reminded me that on my 4th birthday, my father had a big birthday party for me. And there was a big concert that he arranged in a suburb of Mumbai called Mahim, which is where we used to live. And there was Shankar Jaikishan and Raj Kapoor Saab and Dilip Saab and so many other great film people who were sitting in the audience. You won't believe this, that the concert started, my birthday concert, started with Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Saab. He sang. After him, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji sat and played sitar. After him, Birju Maharaj performed, a young Birju Maharaj. And after Birju Maharaj ji, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab played sitar.
How lucky were you?
How lucky, exactly. And with all these great people sitting in the audience, listening to these all night. So at about 1 o'clock in the morning, the police came and had us shut the sound system off. Because, well, the neighbors and all that. So the Birju Maharaj concert and the Vilayat Khan Sahab concert happened without sound system. It was amazing. I was falling asleep in my mother's lap. Then I'd wake up and I'd watch. But he reminded me that had happened. And so playing with him has been a very special experience. I have to say 2 dancers have guided me as an accompanist of dance. I used to, at my young age, play in dance classes, practice. And one of those classes was Sitaraji's class. So her influence and Birju Maharaji's influence is paramount in my playing as a dance accompanist, and having played with Birju Maharaji has always been, a very high moment in my professional life, and I have always looked forward to it. The last time was maybe about 3 years ago. We played in San Francisco and we played in Minneapolis, and I think 3 years ago we also played for Ajivasan, Suresh Wadkar's school. So I thank my lucky stars. I mean, I played with 4 generations of musicians, starting with the senior Dagar brothers, Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Amir Khan Sahab, Pandit Omkar Nath Thakur, and then, of course, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab, Pandit Ram Narayan ji, and then down to Pandit Shiv Kumar Sharma, Hari Prasad ji, Amjad Ali Khan Sahab, Rais Khan Sahab, Nikhil Banerjee, and then down to Shahid Parvez and Buddhaditya Mukherjee and Shujaat Khan and these guys, and now to the next generation, Niladri Kumar, Purbayan Chatterjee and Rakesh and all those. It's just in one lifetime to be able to have seen this kind of changes happen in our music is is priceless and a great learning experience.
The Sudha in front of you has fainted.
No,
And
no, she's
you chided me for having said, use the word old age.
but it is. No, but I started so young that you know,
That's it. That's
yeah.
it.
And I'm going to be 70 in March.
God bless you.
Thank you.
All of us watching you, I'm sure we pray for you.
Thank you very much. Need that.
Um, Purbayan is watching you.
Ah, hello,
Hello.
Purbayanji. You know, he's one of those modern musicians who started this thing called the in sync idea. This is
Yes.
a group. You know, now that we have to talk on web, how do we play with each other with all this delay, sound delays and stuff happening?
Yes.
Well, Purbayanji, with the help of this engineer in Chennai called Aditya Srinivasan, have
Yes.
figured out a way to be able to play together live without sound latency and delays and stuff, and they have overcome that problem. And so I'm hoping that they will share that information with oldies like me, so I can do that with young ones like you. Mumbai
Excuse
to Chennai to everywhere. And so, and Purbayan is really a very special player, taking forward the legacy of Pandit Nikhil Banerjee, his father's teacher, and of course, his inspiration. And I wish him well, and I hope that he will keep me in mind for some of his concerts.
So we are already 80 minutes done. So
Yeah, I think we should. We need to call it, because I have another meeting with, you believe it or not, Rakesh Chaurasia, Salim Merchant, Kaushiki ji. They're waiting in the wing for me to have a Zoom meeting with them right now.
But then we have to bring it to a kind of a closure with fun, right?
Why bring it to a closure? We just need to say that we will continue this at another time.
We're going to go on this merry-go-round now with fast questions and short answers. Your favorite vacation spot?
Home.
How important is humor in life?
The most important.
One time that you laughed uncontrollably for no reason.
At a sound check in Paris with John McLaughlin, Srinivas Ji, Shankar Mahadevan, Selva Ganesh, and I don't know what happened. John played a little riff, and Srinivas Ji played a little riff, and Shankar Ji, instead of playing, said something funny, and we all broke out, and I think we laughed for almost 7 or 8 minutes. The sound check was forgotten. We just laughed and laughed and laughed, tears rolling down, and we just couldn't stop. And I was afraid that the moment will arrive when we actually play the concert and it's going to be a problem.
What's the first thing that you notice about someone when you meet them?
Their smile.
I'm smiling. One beautiful gesture or a kind of an appreciation that you've got from your legendary collaborators for what you played? Just one off your mind.
One of the collaboration was M.F. Hussain, the great painter. We did a concert together, just me and him, Hussain and Hussain. Sounded like a law firm.
Hussain Square.
And so what I did was I arranged his canvas to be pin mic'd, little mics taped onto his canvas. So when he put the brush on it, you could hear it in the sound. And then the rhythm of his brushes would be what I would follow rhythmically. And I played, he painted. And once the painting was over, he looked at it and said, I've never had such a rhythmic experience in my painting. Thank you very much. He had a brush that he used to use as a cane as well. It was a tall brush with a cane. He just took and he gave it to me. For you. I mean, that gesture from a great painter like him coming to me, it was his painting sits right here on my wall that he sent to me. When I got Padma Shri, he
Mhm.
he made a painting of a horse, and in that he wrote in Urdu, Zakir Hussain Padma Shri Mubarak. So it sits right there on my wall, and such a gesture from this incredible artist, a timeless artist, is something that I will never forget.
One fan experience that has touched you very emotionally.
Uh, there was a fan in Delhi, uh, a lady, almost I would say 70 some years old. I played a concert. Uh, she was in a wheelchair.
Mhm.
She could not come to see me on the stage, but she was crying and telling all these people, I want to see him. And so somebody came to me and said, there is this. So I went down,
How
and,
sweet.
I met her and I said hello. And she just held my hand and she was crying. And then she, even though it was cold in Delhi, winter time, she took off her shawl and she said, you're sweating and it's cold in Delhi. Wear this shawl. And she put the shawl around me. And I said, but you're going to be cold. She said, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. You wear the shawl. It was an amazing gesture. That was a, believe it or not, a full size touche shawl. Touche
Mhm.
is something which is priceless. Now it's probably worth many, many lakhs of rupees. Uh, and she just put it on me, and that was it. And she said, now go and rest and eat or something, and then she left.
Your favorite Chennai food?
Hmm. Hari Aranji took me to military Punnu Swami
For a second.
uh, after a concert, and we had some chettinad food at that place. Uh, Special.
So we have to finish with music.
Uh-huh.
Tadinge na tumta, tadinge na tumta, tadinge na tumta.
Tadige na tumta, tadige na tuta, tadige na tuta.
Tadinge na tumta, tadinge na tumta, tadinge na tumta.
Tadinge na tuta, tadinge na tuta, tadinge na tuta. But I can't compete with you. I am so sorry.
Oh,
I am
it
so
was
sorry.
just for fun, and we didn't have music as
Yeah.
such. So I
Yes,
wanted to create the element of,
but
music.
it has come. It has come. I'm so blessed. Sudhaji, you've been very kind to me. You've allowed me to ramble on and on and on, and just guided me through this interview. I'm sorry if I've said anything, not kosher, but please accept my pranams and my thanks, and thanks to everybody who's been watching, and my pranams to them for watching. And I hope that one day soon we will meet and we'll be able to actually touch each other, and that would be again an experience of living again.
You stole my words again. I should be saying thank you to you
My
on
pleasure.
behalf of all of us watching you and listening to you. In fact, I wanted you to just speak on. I didn't
Oh
even
my
want
God.
questions because you have a beautiful way of waving your magical wand of words, taking us through then and now, and from now where.
Then.
Bye, Zakir. Bye.
Bye, pranam, take care.
Thank
And
you. What a beautiful evening. With so much of the life experience of Zakir had. It's something that we all need to experience, needed to experience. And this is the kind of thing that we just think we'll know. We will have to write words to sum up what
I will see it. I'm sure all of you have been watching all the episodes. You realize that the cooking is a little today because there's so much that I have to learn from Takira. Right from music to his humility, to his way of expressing himself, to his respect, to his doing, and for all the legendary musicians who have played for, being with on this with musical thing. Thank you, many of you, for your elaborate words and observations. We're trying to do our best, but I think it's only this month in the talk on TV. If I told you that all of this set up and me talking to you, sitting before you, everything is done only by two people, yes, you have to believe me. We worked really hard to bring something meaningful, something that you all will cherish. So we are taking what you observe to your meaning. How many people relative cases in there? How many were close to 2000 only? How many of you can't அது ஒரு மொழியா இல்லாத நிறைய பேர் இந்த ப்ரோக்ராம் பார்த்துட்டு ஸோ அவங்க எல்லாருக்கும் இது போய் சேரணும் அப்படின்னு ஒரு 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 எல்லாருக்கும் புரியுற மாதிரி ஒரு மொழியை எடுத்துக்கணும்னு ஆங்கிலம் தான் அதனாலதான் ஆங்கிலத்தை பேசிட்டு இருக்கோம் குவாலிட்டி English is a language that is understood by most people across the world. So let's continue with the epaulettes, the sanitizer, the mask, and the social distancing. Stay healthy and take care of yourselves. So we meet again next week with another interesting, awesome personality. Good night.